Welcome to Podcaster Toten. My name's Rad,
Matt.
This is not tack.
not Tech. This is someone else.
Yep.
Today we're going to talk about Group 601, one of the most obscure old zombie lore references. A lot of people, I would not be surprised if they have not heard of Group 601. So let's go into where they appear and what we know about them. So the first appearance that we know of was in Duries, and they're in a couple places in Duries. So the first place is in the loading screen that only appears when you're playing online co-op. I had to check this myself today, and if you play split screen co-op, it's not there. If you play solo, it's not there. But if you play online co-op, if you look at the loading screen where there should be, the 935 logo, it just says 601 instead of 935. Why? We don't know yet. So the next place that 601 appears is in the Black Ops 1 files. You can find a texture. It's just a picture, and we'll put it up now. It's basically an image of like a mushroom cloud. In the background, there's some towers that are sending a signal, and then the group 935 logo, but the 935 is 601, and it's got some German writing on it that says Stufe 2, which means stage 2, and then at the bottom it says Starke durch Ordnung, which means strength through order, and then the letters NZR, which we don't know what that means. And then also in Black Ops 1, in the DLC map for multiplayer, Berlin, you can find some albums and then like a music store, and that same mushroom cloud and tower background is on one of the vinyls, and then on another vinyl near it, you can see that same motto, Starke durch Ordnung.
Right? It's a cool little combination of separation of Easter eggs, and that's a fun one.
It seems very deliberate. Together. And then the last place is actually all the way in Black Ops 3. There's a texture in like a newspaper, and they took that same like mushroom cloud towers image with 601, but they actually edited it to make it more in line with the new 935 logo that doesn't have the SS symbol at the bottom.
Oh yeah.
So it's like they deliberately took the old file, like the old image, and modified it and put it in Black Ops 3 for some reason, when they could have just put whatever there. But it's all over the place in Black Ops 3. Mm-hmm. And that's all the appearances of Group 601. Other than that, we don't have any idea what they are. So what are your first impressions based on just what we know so far about like what Group 601 is?
I got nothing. I mean, the only thing, it's really just more questions I have than any type of answer. Because like I know when you kind of look at like all the other groups that have sort of been mentioned in zombies lore, and I mentioned this before and I've talked to you guys about it, but like the Majestic 12, and then kind of how I was thinking that maybe the Majestic 12 became Broken Arrow because there's sort of that lineage and a couple other connections there. Like, just trying to figure out, is there any parallel to like is 601 a remnant of something? Did it become something else we know? I got no clue what 601 is. Really, right now, I'm just trying to Google numerology.
Right. What's the meaning of the numbers?
Yeah, I might be getting on something, but I don't know. So yeah, what do you guys? What's your takeaway of where you think 601, what it is?
I think I have two distinct questions that I've got. One of them is also on Doris at the time, is that note about Harp and just some of the things, which let's put aside the fact that Harp was not around at that point. I mean, it wasn't created until like the 90s.
But it is referenced in Shinonuma, so.
I'm wondering if, a lot of people have mind control type theories about Harp, so I'm wondering if it's, something like that, or the other one, the big one that I'm thinking is if it's step 2, strength through order, does that step 2 of Group 601, or is like Group 601 step 2 and maybe like 935 was step 1 or step 3 or step 5? I don't know, but I wonder if that's related at all.
I think you're on the money there, personally. Like, if we're to assume that this is canon within Ether now still, that is definitely, I think that's on the money. With just, the atomic bomb says to me this is like the Cold War era. Like, this is something further in the future, and then like the towers. that was a huge part of Richtofen's plan, and he set the seeds to have those built all over the world for Black Ops 2. So it's like, yeah, it seems like it fits, but yet there's not any direct mentions of 601 and what that is.
But that it's sort of just connected to Richtofen.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, like you said, that's probably the best bet that we have, and it seems to be, like you mentioned earlier, about I think it was like the Bloom bookstore in one of the maps where, there's the logo, and then there's I think it's a poster of Richtofen, right? And it's like a book, and it's like the Doctor and Friends, and then it says like strength. Is it strength through order or whatever? I forget exactly what it. Yeah, strength through order. So like, I think the only thing like that's concrete enough is it has something to do with Richtofen. So
I have like 3 theories. One of them is the real life, what this is. The second one is what this means within the context of the Berlin map. And then the third is what context it might have in Ether. So like the first theory, what it means in real life is like, I think that loading screen is just like a leftover. It's something just left in on accident, just because it appears only in that specific circumstance, and it's so tiny. And like other parts of that.
That's such a huge oversight, though.
Yeah.
Like that is your co-op online loading screen.
You swap a JPEG and you forget to, version 1, version 2.
Yeah.
And then I think appearances after that are more references.
But they probably canonized it.
Right. Now, in the context of the Berlin map, I think personally that image looks a lot like a metal album. It's got like the mushroom cloud. It's just like a really cool design for like a album cover. And I think that Strength Through Order would probably be like the name, or Stufus would be the name of the record. And that NZR, we don't know what that means, but like the first thing I think of is the first thing I think of when I see the NZR is Nazi Zombie Records.
Yeah, I was thinking something.
So it might just be like an in-universe, like maybe they're inspired by the real group 935, and it's like a metal band or something called Starkdurch Ordnung or whatever. So that's in that context. But
the question I had was, do you want to go?
I was just gonna say the thing that I really take from it. Group 601 makes me think of, and the fact that it's in the Berlin wall map, and the fact it's about mind control, which we kind of think was going on at Kino. It makes me wonder how much of Kino was actually like a almost like a quasi 935 601 hybrid facility instead of like just a 935 type thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess also considering if Kino was like DLC 4 or map pack 4,
right.
Then maybe there would have been maybe it was just a scrapped plot line that Group 601 would have been another part, and maybe it also kind of makes sense when when Richtofen what was it in the original Kino intro says who's like the secrets of Group 935 and where did Samantha run off to and who is the little girl or whatever. Of course now it could just be feigning, but it seems like maybe what they were trying to do with is that maybe it was like 601 versus 935 or something like that, and I guess that would also explain Richtofen's connection to 601 because maybe he was more affiliated with 601 or something.
Right, Max is taking the 935 and Richtofen being like, fuck it, fine, I'll take 601.
Yeah, and now could I explain why, at least in Kino, he appears to be less knowledgeable of like what 935 is and Samantha and stuff like that, even though
God, what a weird loading screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Really strange to try to explain that one. But the third explanation I had was a bit more like, I think it's a bit more interesting. It's more ether connected. So like, when we think about Richtofen's plan, it seems like he had everything kind of figured out from the start. But when you really look at it, it really seems kind of absurd that he planned to he was like, okay, we're gonna open up the MPD, and then I'm gonna get in it, but I'm actually not gonna get into it yet. I'm gonna betray Maxis, but then he's not gonna die, and then Samantha's gonna get into the pyramid, and then I'm gonna go through a whole time rift for a couple years, and then I'm gonna get back into it, and then I'm gonna have a war on Earth with these towers and go through all this crap. That
Well,
seems a little absurd, right?
was that I thought that maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought that the whole Samantha thing, it's weird because yeah, why? Because initially when Doris came out, it made it seem like where he was teleporting Samantha and Fluffy was like he was just trying to kill them or send them somewhere else. But then later you learn like, oh, that was to Griffin Station. So, um, how much of it? Yeah, I still thought it to some extent it was some type of an accident that she got in there, right? Like
Right.
that was.
And I think this would be a good way to fit that as an accident, because if that was an accident, what was his plan initially? Because he would get into the pyramid, right?
Mhm.
But then if he needed those towers to be built in order to take full control, that must have been his plan from the start to, because remember he splits the scientists up, sends them to the Soviet Union, sends them to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
like in exchange for their lives, right?
Yeah.
I think his plan initially was to send them that way, and that is stage 2 for them to, from separate sides of the Earth, to build these towers and give him
Maybe
full control.
Yeah, maybe then the whole plot of sending Samantha to the moon, I don't know, was to capture her and like use her as leverage against Maxis or something to like kind of halt 935 or something if there is some
It
type of
just sounded
betrayal.
so unintentional. The radios to me.
Yeah, it did. It's just
Right.
weird. Like, why was she sent there? Like that.
Right.
I
mean, I don't know.
like.
There's been miscalibrations before. What are the chances he just thought he was sending them somewhere? It turns out one went to the moon, one went to the crazy place.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just seems like that is if that's planned, that seems a little ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
But if that's an accident, I think it would make sense for him to have like the second part of his plan to utilize the U.S. and the Soviet Union's resources to get those towers built while he's in the pyramid.
Okay, so are you thinking
didn't
of
work out.
Group 601 as kind of a personalization of Richtofen in the sense like it's strength through like Richthofen's order, not through like
Right.
like Nazi Germany's orders through 601 type thing?
Right. Like,
Okay.
I mean, the image signifies it's like the nuclear age. You got the towers, casting control. It seems very like BO2 Richthofen
Sure.
era.
Huh. It's so hard because like on my separate tangent, I've just been looking up stuff for numerology and trying to find like an actual source or what are just people are saying, what
Right.
numbers mean, and of course it's all vague and ambiguous because there's like a bunch of this number means all these different things, so it sounds like you can basically connect it to anything. But like, I'm almost wondering, at least one book I found, if like strength through order or something is almost like 601. I don't know if I'm going too deep into it, but like
Maybe, I don't know.
because it's like
Right. Who
according
knows?
to this book I found, the complete book of numerology mentions how 6 is the center of the mind. It represents creativity, the integration of the left and the right lobes of the brain. It also represents the opposite of creativity, destruction, and expressed as worry, stress, anxiety. And then it mentions as 1 being, a physical number is the only absolute symbol of divine expression. So strength through unity or something like unity. I don't know. It's just, I guess.
Right. You're trying to pick up that thread, trying to see if there's anything. I almost wish it wasn't 0-1 so that we could do like, like at least 935 is like ice. Like 601, like there's no letter 0. I can't work that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm wondering if, like, again, this might be really thinking into it, but you can have strength and unity can sort of, which again is sort of the fault of this, that it's easy to connect it to anything or see any
Right.
pattern because it's so broad. But with that being said, through is really the only thing that doesn't have any connotation with any of the numbers. So that almost makes me think why it's connected to 0 because there
Sure.
isn't any. So I don't know, but
Mhm.
I mean, I was trying to look up like, is there anything with like passages in in the Bible or like any significance to just those 935, 601? Even looking in a couple of books I have on like like Nazi occultism and stuff like that. Like I can't find anything on like numerology or why they would be, because it does seem like when they were coming up with those numbers, right? Someone had to be like, let's go with group 935, and I kind of wonder like why 935? Like what is
Right.
significant about those three? Like it's not like
So the
dates,
main,
years, yeah.
so I don't know, the main one that I remember I believed in and probably still do or could be convinced, but I've unfortunately forgotten so many of the details, is that 935 being ice is actually a reference to,
Like the world ice theory.
The world ice
Yeah.
theory.
Oh, so how does it connect to ice? Is that just with the is it like where the letters are associated with a number?
Right, literally 935 is ICE.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that one, which is what's unfortunate, is if they're actually making a meaning out of it there, then like, oh my gosh, 601 has to mean something. Just who knows what.
Well, I mean, if we're to believe that 601 was like the original name and they last minute changed it, that could be why. They're like, oh, it'd be cool if it was 95 ice. And they're like, oh, let's get rid of that number that we just kind of came up with on the spot while we were working this out.
Well, that sucks that they canonized it.
Yeah, I guess it's like, why bring it back?
Yeah, seriously, you didn't have to. You didn't have to, but you decided to.
Mm-hmm. That's really the only reason that like it's even worth discussing is more than a remnant of something cut.
But. So that's my question. So okay, what do you think? Do you make any significance of it in the Derice newspaper? Just laying around on the ground. We know it's probably well, I'm not even going to say it's a reused asset in the sense that I almost think that was its original purpose, and then the campaign and stuff became the reused asset. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. What do you take from it being in VO3 Derice?
In the Giant?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that could be like a result of the fracture, but even then, I mean, it's still Group 935 in that fracture. But does that then create this remnant 601 in the fracture? And it's like, oh well, that loading screen was actually, it's a loading screen for the fracture version.
Yeah, it's like one of those things it really goes back to sort of our gameplay conversation, is because initially it seems like there's a lot of evidence that it might have just been like a beta build of what 935 was supposed to be, but then now like there's more attention to detail, and especially with this is around the time of Chronicles, like I'd find it hard to believe that they would let that slip through the cracks. But then maybe at the same time, I mean, you don't know how the teams are divided, and like maybe the team that's associated with just working on the assets sees the general logo and they're like, oh yeah, it's the 935 logo, or like like I don't know. I mean, I find it like hard that would slip through, but I feel like it would also be really intentional. But at the same time, I mean, there does seem to be a trend of just assets just slipping through and being reused and repurposed and thrown all over the place, that I could totally see someone just being like copy paste, copy paste, copy paste.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a small detail, just that small number.
Right.
I mean, it would make sense to me that you'd copy the wrong image file. It's an older version with. Like when you look at it, it looks completely almost the same, unless you zoom in and you see that number. So I could see that mistake being made. Because I mean, I've worked with like programming, and sometimes you just kind of take the lazy route in some cases in naming stuff, and you just kind of come out with, I don't know, you come out with like something that seems like a really hard mistake to make, but yeah.
But it happened.
I mean, do we know? I guess it sucks because it's ironic that we're focusing a lot on the story, and then a lot of it seems like it could just be because of gameplay. But like, for the most part, the Black Ops 3 maps were sort of built from the ground up, right? Like, it wasn't like they had like an older sort of build, like how like 3 and 4 share like a similar engine, and I think that some of the maps technically, could just be like ported over. But like the last time we had Derice was Black Ops 1. So like if they went and recreated it,
that's they inserted it because those 601 newspapers were not in the World of War Black Ops 1 versions of Derice like that. So then
Yeah, like I don't know, like maybe because it's just some, I don't know, image file or whatever, they're able to just paste it into the texture, or like
Yeah.
because if it is from the ground up, because I don't know why this just made me think of it, but in Ascension, I was upset because there was the what are they? Why can't I think the fire extinguishers? You used to be able to shoot them, and then the foam and stuff would shoot out, and that's not there.
Oh.
Or I don't know if they're there, but they don't explode. But it was just like a little weird thing that was in Ascension that was never put into the new version, and it made me think maybe it is because it's everything sort of from the ground up. So that could mean that maybe they went out of their way to remake the assets of 601, which it's like
Yeah.
I I don't know.
It's also, I mean, because when you look at like the changing all the swastikas to iron crosses and
Yeah.
changing the SS to just that 3 lines, like they do that pretty much everywhere on the Giant, but there's a couple places where they accidentally forgot to. Like,
Interesting.
I think maybe on the Monkey Bomb's hat, that's like the one that's part of the fly trap, but not the one that you actually use in game. It's like, I think it's like still the same low res like original with its SS. So it's like, I mean, if they're gonna forget that tiny
Yeah.
little detail.
Because I just wonder too, like when you're also working on the game and you're tasked with sort of doing all those changes or upscaling images, I wonder like how many things you just kind of go on autopilot and you're not even like realizing, you know what I mean? Like you're just like, okay, we need to change this poster, this, this, and then you keep seeing that logo that you think is 935. Maybe you're not even paying attention to the numbers because you're just like, okay, got to remove the SS. So it would be funny if this was just an original or the proto 935, and it's just somehow managed to just slip its way up into one of the most recent installments, and there really is nothing associated with it. But I don't know.
How sad would that be?
Yeah, but I feel like there's like some obscure references and things that like I don't think that's the case. Maybe initially it was like Brad said, it was a sort of a beta 935, but I feel like for it to just show up later, like especially with sort of their attention to detail.
Yeah.
And this reminds me, was it in Kino? This is another like random change, but in Kino, wasn't there like a chemical compound or something like that you would see? I forget what the formula, like what it was for, and the
Cabin Sarin, yeah.
yeah, and the formula's changed in it, right? In the
There's like
Chronicles one.
very slight words change yet, yeah. And I think it's also in Classified, I want to say.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
because
thought so.
there's like a couple changes to it. It's like why? What is the
Right.
What is the meaning?
What is the meaning?
What were
the
you thinking?
numbers?
I mean, it might just be like, the rogue texture artist
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, they're gonna love this one.
Yeah, right.
Let's get them with this one."
Yeah. Especially if it's
All
like a
right.
large team.
Yeah, right. Does all right, does anyone have any I guess parting theories, I guess overall thoughts on how we should interpret Group 601? I don't know, do you want their story developed more? What do you I don't know. Final thoughts?
I think there's definitely some connection to Richtofen, and I'm imagining for it to still be alive in some form, that there must be some point to it. I kind of like the idea of it being like a Richtofen splinter group, and especially with sort of the association of, because now I'm just on numerology now, but like 6 is like an incomplete number or something like that, like Richtofen sort of betrayal. I don't know. I think there's something that can be done with it, and hopefully in the future it might be alluded to.
Well, I
Because
didn't
the
think of
very
it until you just said it now, but do you think that's literally just that group of scientists that he had working on, like Griffin Station and stuff, like that's the
that's what
splinter
I
group?
yeah that's what I sort of interpreted it as. Um, I mean, I think the other connection to harp and everything is, I mean, maybe it is just proto harp, just as like if
But
you
it
take
can't be proto
because
harp because harp's American.
well yeah, but I mean
Well,
like
for now,
yeah, for now, because like I guess
zombies. It's like something else.
yeah, because like how if you have like Operation Paperclip Stapler, those things you take the
Mhm.
remnants of Group 601, then it becomes HARP, just as like the Majestic
Sure,
12
sure,
become
sure.
Division. Broken Arrow.
Word.
Yeah, because it all's tied together with like all the experimental weaponry, and especially with the Nazis' obsession with like electricity and
Right.
like weird like force fields and stuff like that, with manipulating the weather and mind, and so it's all interconnected. And I think even wasn't there the Japan was also trying to make like weather weapons too. So
Mhm.
yeah, it could all fall
I
into
like
that.
it.
Yeah, the
I
last thing
like
I would
it.
say was with the numbers in the campaign, has there ever been 601 or 935 flashed with like Mason seeing like a random string of numbers?
Not that I've seen.
Not that I've seen.
Okay, yeah, because I
I've been
haven't
looking
either,
at
but I
that
was
a
just
lot
curious. Yeah, I mean,
recently.
That'd be a fun one to look up.
yeah.
All right, we designate you. You're gonna go redo the campaign.
Okay. I'll
You have to
just
watch
have to
every number sequence.
screenshot. I have to break it down. Like I
Yep.
play it at like 2% speed to just
Yep.
see.
That's funny. All right, then when you find the 1 out of 1,000, you can show.
But like 601's there. Um, Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing that I had was you mentioned Harp is referenced in Shinonuma and Doris, like the as the
Directly.
organization
Yeah.
directly, huh?
Yeah.
Say this
Yeah,
because this could power Harp.
I mean, I guess it's entirely possible then that maybe 601 merges with Harp or something, and then like the Harp. I mean, I know it's like the 90s is like real, but
I almost think of it as like, okay, like, yeah, pretending just heard that harp exists earlier, I guess. But I almost think of it, like Max's letter to High Command, where he talks about, just like the state of how they found 115 and it's like at the Nevada base and stuff. I'm
yeah,
almost thinking it's like an analysis of that, where like this could be what powers harp, and yada yada, just talking about the American system and trying to learn from it.
That's right, because it is weird that like certain like they'll be specific on certain dates, and then other dates get a little like messy because
Right.
Area 51 wasn't around, and they mentioned the. I mean, I guess like in this universe, there's sort of the like you said, the in explanation is maybe it wasn't a base, but it was a site of like element 115 deposit
Yeah.
or something. But like
Right.
it is a little weird that they mentioned that, and I don't know. So.
Yeah, I really don't get the harp. It's just like, really, guys, you are off by 45 years or something.
Well, I mean, think about the Chancellor. The German Chancellor.
yeah.
So,
45.
but you know what's weird though? I feel like that's the least of the because with all the whole like Nazi exiles and going to South America, and I just feel like it's just a government in exile, because especially with the whole idea of like the Nazis went to the moon, they went to Antarctica, they went to the Hollow Earth, like
Right.
I wouldn't be so surprised if just you could just wave that away as that's the government that fled and they're now like in the dinosaur world under Antarctica or something right now. Like that's kind of where I'm like, okay. But yeah, maybe it's just simple human error to forget when Area 51 was there. It's weird.
It's good talk about this Group 601. Very heavily forgotten remnant of the past. So
Right.
yeah. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Goodbye, friends. And this is not tack, by the way.
No, not time. That's not.
Nope.